I saw an interview yesterday with Sheryl Sandberg, who is with Facebook, used to be with Google before. She had lost her husband about 5 years ago or so. They were in their mid-40s, so it was a while ago. But it impressed me what I heard from her because it reminded me a lot of what Dan wrote in his book, Hurricane of Love. I want to talk about that this morning on Your Morning Cup of Inspiration. Hello, and thank you so much for joining me today. You know, as I was listening to her, I couldn't help but think of Dan's book, Hurricane of Love, and I started relating to it because she talked about a couple things about after when her husband passed. And one thing Dan talks about is just being there. And she talked about that too. She says that you never go into a bookstore and find books that help others. You only find self-help books. I thought that's interesting. You don't go in there to look for a help others book. And that's what Dan talked about and she talked about, just being there. She said that you got to talk about the hard stuff. It's not, you got to talk about the elephant that's in the room between you. People that when they come in, they don't want to say anything because you don't want to remind you of what's going on. Maybe it's a grief or a loss or something's happening in your life. She says, but you're the first one to know that. You know about it already and you really want to talk about it. There's times you want to be alone, but there's other times that you have to have somebody there. And that's what the church is. We're the church. It's not a building. It's not rules. It's not things like that. It is the people. The people are the church. And when we go out and help others that are suffering or that are grieving, that's what the church is about. That's what we're supposed to be doing. That's what God is telling us, to love others like he loved us. Over in Hebrews 10:24, the Bible tells us, and let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. Well, the one thing we can do is helping someone that is going through a trying time, that is going through grief, that is having a time of suffering. And as Dan mentioned, and as Sheryl mentioned, just show up. Just be there. Don't be afraid to talk. She talked about how she went back to work and just would break down crying. She cried in a meeting. She fell asleep at a meeting because she was just exhausted. Dan said the same thing. When he went to work, it'd be something would trigger and he would just, you just lose it at that time. But don't be afraid to step in and talk and to share and to hug somebody. Give them love. He mentions it. He talks about all through Hurricane of Love. I was really impressed when I heard Sheryl talk because it reminded me of what Dan went through and how everybody seems to go through these same things. If you haven't read this book yet, please get a chance to read it, get it. You can go to hurricaneoflove.com to order it and get it. And for anyone that's going through any tough times, they should read this. This isn't just about Beth's journey. This is about the creation of Fearless Faith Ministries, but it talks about how Dan handled grief and how people helped him and how you have to just show up. So I pray that you will take that into consideration today, and that you will look out to help others when you see them grieving, when you see them in time of trouble, when you see them suffering, when you see them in a trial. They're struggling. Be the first to go out there and lend a hand and help them, all right? God bless everyone. I look forward to seeing you again for another Morning Cup of Inspiration. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.